This is BRICS Global Television Network's Daily Roundup. We begin with the headlines. South African political parties weigh up coalition options. We have an exclusive interview with Democratic Alliance leader John Steenhuisen. It's a win for Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi's Bharatiya Janata Party following 6 weeks of elections. And more visuals from China's exploration of the far side of the moon. We begin in South Africa, where the political landscape has shifted somewhat following the country's 7th democratic elections. Since 1994, the African National Congress has governed, but now, after garnering 40% of the vote, it's lost its majority. In simple terms, the ANC needs to rely on backers from other parties to get over the threshold, and that's where coalition talks come into the picture. The main opposition party, the Democratic Alliance, led by John Steenhuisen, has opened the door to the ANC, and negotiations are underway. In a BGTN exclusive, my colleague Ray White speaks to the DA's John Steenhuisen.
John Steenhuisen of the DA, thanks for chatting to us today. The DA entering into government from an international perspective. What does that mean for South Africa and for the rest of the world, I suppose?
Well, I think that it's got to be seen in the context of the political environment that's emerged post the 2024 election, where no one party's got a majority. The voters have dealt that hand. We've seen a rise of the anti-constitutionalists, and a government has to be formed. And so, as the second largest party in the country, we believe that we have a duty to try and form some form of arrangement that focuses on stability, constitutionalism and growth. And we would want to seek to achieve those three things and to prevent the radical policies of the anti-constitutionalists from getting into government and doing what those policies did in Zimbabwe, in Venezuela and wherever else they've been tried in the world.
Yeah. Talking about that and the other opposition parties, the Economic Freedom Fighters, the MK Party, if they did have to enter into government, what are we looking at?
Well, if one looks at their policy suite and as well as their manifesto promises, these all focused on very radical Chavez-style politics, expropriation of land without compensation, abolition of private property ownership, nationalization of the Reserve Bank, MK talking about doing away with the judiciary and returning to a sovereign parliament, which is what we had in the system of apartheid. So you'll abolish the rule of law and replace it with the rule of parliament. Sending pregnant teenage women to Robben Island. These are the sort of radical policies. And I think that overnight, if those get into government, you will see disinvestment, you will see capital flight, and many, many more South Africans lining up in an unemployment queue, much more hunger and poverty, and an economy that is going to then stagnate and decline to the point where it will not be able to provide for what is required.
Yeah. The DA entering into government, that would be with the ANC. What do you expect to see? We had years of state capture. We've had corruption. Do they want you there?
Well, I don't know if they want us there, and that's what this week is all about. It's about the parties reaching out to find each other and see what the options are. We've tasked our negotiating team to go out and engage with these other parties and to bring back what they've put on the table to our federal executive and allow us to look at those options and see which is the least worst out of all of them, because there are no good options. And to try and find out which one will work best for South Africa, focusing on growth, stability and protecting the Constitution and our democracy, but also good for the DA going forward. And those 3.5 million people who placed their trust in our party to rescue South Africa.
Looking at, though, things like national health insurance, these are things that the DA have said, hold on a second, they're red flags here. What does that mean for a coalition with the ANC? Because that's their baby.
Well, we would obviously, if we get into formal negotiations, we'll obviously put on the table things like the NHI. But the thing is, I don't think there's a difference in the approach to what we want to do. Both the DA and the ANC, and I would venture most other parties, want to see universal access to basic health care. We believe you can do it in South Africa. It just is not the NHI. And so either through amendment bills or through a repealing and replacing, you would be able to, I believe, move towards universal access to basic healthcare. We've done it in the Western Cape. Taxpayer-funded public hospitals that are clean, that work, that heal the sick and are able to function properly. There's no reason we couldn't carry that experience into national government to see how it could be done at a national level. Empowerment policies as well. We all want to see people who have been previously disadvantaged from being given an opportunity to improve their lives.
But will there not be a situation where you have some members of the ANC who don't want the DA to take a look at the books because the books don't look so good?
Well, that's for the ANC to decide. I have no control over what happens in the ANC. I've only got control of what my party and our negotiating team would be looking at. But certainly, I think that it would give international markets confidence that a party that has delivered clean, accountable, corruption-free government in the Western Cape, all government departments with a clean audit, Auditor General, top municipalities, all in the DA-run Western Cape. And I think taking that track record into government would certainly give markets and voters some satisfaction that now there are clean, accountable people in an arrangement that is looking at how we can best save the country, rescue South Africa, and focus on the stability and growth agenda in the country.
The DA's campaign has been that, rescue South Africa. How do you turn it around in a country where it's so unequal?
Yeah, but you've got to deal with that inequality. And the reality is that over the last 30 years, government programs and policies have focused on trying to create an equality of outcome. What we should be doing is focusing on how you create an equality of opportunity.
President Cyril Ramaphosa had his own initiative to get investment into this country. He wanted to have billions enter into South Africa. Where did he not get it right? Because we're not seeing the unemployment rate go down.
If we really want to get investment into South Africa, we've got to focus on creating the environment for investment to flourish. Uncertainty about expropriation does not do that. Collapsing infrastructure, where our roads, our ports and harbours, our railway service are dysfunctional, does not augur well for attracting international investment. The energy crisis. Who on earth is going to bring a factory to South Africa or some manufacturing process where we have a shortage of electricity and blackouts in the country? Water shedding the same. So we've got to focus on getting those basic things right. I still believe that those are the key areas that require our attention over the next 5 years if we're going to create jobs, create growth, if we're going to end poverty, and if we're going to build an opportunity society for more South Africans.
Yeah. Your critics say that the DA is too white. It's a white party.
Well, I would encourage them to have a look very carefully at the statistics. If the DA was a white party, we'd be sitting at roughly 2% of the vote. We're now sitting at 22% of the vote. We are drawing support from all South Africans. We are the most diverse political party. Our top six is the most diverse of any top six in the country.
The multi-party charter was a great idea. Is it now dead in the water?
Well, it was set up for a purpose, and that was to bring the ANC below 50% and then to be able to form a new majority that would be able to bring a new government into place. I think it was the right idea. I maintain that the best outcome for South Africa would have been if the multi-party charter had gone over the line. While the DA grew in this election, some of the other parties to the charter did not live up to the expectations that we had of them and they had of themselves. And as a result, at the end of the day, when we looked at the election results, the multi-party charter had collectively around 29% of the vote. That's not enough to form a majority.
The MK party, an absolute surprise. Were you surprised or did you see this coming?
No, I saw it coming. Let me tell you why. Jacob Zuma is a master politician. Now, you may not like him, but his favorability rate, his name recognition in South Africa is unparalleled. He's by far the most well-known politician in the country. And you marry that with a wholesale takeover of ANC structures in a place like KwaZulu-Natal, Gauteng and Mpumalanga, and you've got a formidable combination there. Ally that with a bit of money coming in from Moscow and a few other places around the world, and you've got a campaign there. I saw during the registration weekend that we weren't dealing with some startup party. They had gazebos, T-shirts, branded vehicles, organisation. This was a party that's been up and running for a while, and they were determined to do what they did. And I think the result in KZN, as terrifying as it is for freedom-loving Democrats, is remarkable.
Entering into government, what are the 5 things you'd need to do first?
First, we've got to end load shedding in the country. You cannot grow an economy without electricity. I think you'd have to look at expanding the work that's already been done and bringing the private sector on board. I think we can move a lot faster there. Secondly, you have to make sure that you deal with the infrastructure crisis in the country. And again, this is something that could quite easily be done through a public-private partnership model, particularly on rail and the ports and harbours. It's international best practice. Thirdly, you've got to focus absolutely on being able to fix the education system in the country through an overhaul of the curriculum and a focus on teacher quality. We've got a plan that would triple the number of grade 4 learners who can read for meaning. Currently, 82% of grade 4 learners cannot read for meaning. And then focusing as well on policing. It is unacceptable that 84 South Africans are killed every day. We have a plan that would involve devolution of policing to local level to be able to have much better results, and it works. And the Law Enforcement Advancement Program in the Western Cape has been able to reduce crime, has been able to ensure that you have better results. Those are the key things that you'd be required to do. And finally, build up independent, professional public service. Because you can have the best policies and plans, if you don't have an implementing ability through a public service that's appointed on merit, not on party affiliation, you're going to have a very, very difficult time getting anything done.
And jobs, jobs and jobs.
Well, all of those things speak into the jobs agenda. You're not going to grow jobs without infrastructure. You're not going to create jobs if you don't have a skilled population that are able to go out and be entrepreneurs and carry that experience. You're not going to create jobs in an environment where crime is running rampant and deterring foreign investment. So all of these things are designed to ensure that South Africa becomes an engine room of jobs and job production in South Africa, so that we can start to reverse the inequality, reverse the huge unemployment rate, particularly amongst younger people, and start to build a better future for the country.
John Steenhuisen, leader of the DA, thank you so much for taking the time today to chat to us, and well done on your election result.
Thank you very much. It's always great to be with you, and it's going to be an exciting few weeks for South Africa.
Another BRICS Plus country has just concluded elections, India. And following 6 weeks of voting and tallying of the ballots, the coalition led by Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi's Bharatiya Janata Party has clinched a majority in the general election, according to official results released late Tuesday. With 272 seats secured and a few constituencies yet to be declared, the alliance is set to form the government in the 543-seat parliament. Our BGTN correspondent in India, S. Venkat Narayan, has that story.
Results of the recent elections in India, the world's largest democracy, would have come as a huge disappointment for Prime Minister Narendra Modi and his Bharatiya Janata Party. Modi and his colleagues were claiming that they will win 400 seats in the 543-member Lok Sabha, the lower house of parliament. But the BJP has woefully fallen short of a simple majority. They need 30 more members to support, and they will have to depend on their allies in the National Democratic Alliance. This will force Modi's style of functioning, which is bordered often on the arrogant. And he's being seen as an arrogant and authoritarian person and who wants to have his own way. Even though he has been in power for the last 10 years, he has not bothered to consult the partners in the alliance, the National Democratic Alliance. And also he did not consult or take along the opposition parties in parliament. Several crucial pieces of legislation were passed in parliament despite vehement opposition from the opposition parties. All this will need to change in the third time of Prime Minister Modi. His attempts in recent past to divide India on communal lines by appealing to the majority Hindu community and his frequent Muslim bashing have upset many Hindus who account for 80% of India's population. For the first time in half a century, the opposition parties have joined hands and put up a single candidate against each of the BJP nominees in all the constituencies across India. This has yielded great results. The opposition has actually won more than 200 seats, and they are short of a simple majority by at least 50 seats, and they're actually trying to explore the possibilities of forming their own government by weaning away some of Modi's own alliance partners. But that is not likely to happen. Modi will have to change his style of functioning, which is often seen as arrogant and authoritarian. And the idea behind Modi not getting enough seats in parliament is that the people of India would like him to change his style of governance and take everybody along to progress this country, which is actually a rainbow nation. S. Venkatnarayan, reporting for BGTN from New Delhi, India.
On the 35th anniversary of the Tiananmen Square crackdown, the United States has reaffirmed its commitment to advocating for human rights in China. Despite China's efforts to suppress memories of the 1989 events, including in Hong Kong, commemorative events have taken place overseas. US Secretary of State Antony Blinken labelled the Tiananmen Square events a massacre, expressing solidarity with those seeking human rights and freedom. He pledged continued efforts to hold Beijing accountable for its human rights abuses. The crackdown, marked by tanks entering the square and the deaths of hundreds, if not thousands, remains a painful memory. Exiled Tiananmen protest leader Wang Dan, speaking in the United States, has expressed hope for a future where Chinese people enjoy freedom and dignity, echoing Martin Luther King Jr.'s vision. To Russia now, where the Kremlin has rebuffed Microsoft's report accusing the country of intensifying disinformation ahead of the Paris Olympics, labelling it as absolute slander. Microsoft's Threat Analysis Center highlighted Russia's alleged campaign to discredit the International Olympic Committee and sow fear of violence at the upcoming Paris Games. The center detailed Russia's purported efforts to malign France, President Macron, and the IOC. The Russian embassy in Paris has denied interference in French affairs, denouncing media reports as Russophobic. This follows an incident where 3 individuals left coffins near the Eiffel Tower, draped with French flags bearing the words, "French soldiers in Ukraine." The embassy has protested allegations of Russian involvement, asserting non-interference in France's internal affairs. 3 men have been detained over the incident, which is being investigated for possible foreign interference. Torrential rain and fierce winds have wreaked havoc in South Africa's KwaZulu-Natal and Eastern Cape provinces. Severe floodings claimed the lives of at least 22 people. Rare tornadoes and plummeting temperatures struck multiple locations in the province. In the Eastern Cape, the Nelson Mandela Bay municipalities reported 11 deaths, with over 2,000 evacuations from makeshift homes. KwaZulu-Natal province, including Durban, also suffered fatalities, prompting a state of alert. Dozens have sustained injuries, and displaced individuals have sought refuge in temporary shelters. The catastrophic flooding follows a devastating event in 2022 that claimed over 400 lives in KwaZulu-Natal. Rescue efforts are underway, with homes destroyed, roads submerged and power outages reported. South Africa's National Meteorological Institute warns of ongoing severe weather conditions, urging caution across affected regions. In Saudi Arabia, officials are warning of scorching temperatures averaging 44 degrees Celsius during the upcoming Hajj pilgrimage, with a rise of up to 2 degrees Celsius above normal. Last year, over 2,000 pilgrims suffered heat stress as temperatures soared to 48 degrees. To mitigate risks, officials have advised pilgrims to keep hydrated and to seek air-conditioned accommodation. The Hajj, a pillar of Islam, attracts millions annually to Mecca and Medina. Coming up, BRICS Plus Business.
Only on BGTN.
I have no idea who this guy is. Absolutely no idea. He's not me. I am Ray White. This guy, is a deep fake.
So, as you can see, the BRICS nations have done very well with space exploration, boldly going where no man has gone before. Gosh, it's lovely being in space, isn't it?
Catch me, Ray White, on Building Business One Brick at a Time, your BGTN business show that'll keep you in the know about what's happening in the world of business across BRICS, right here on BGTN.
Coming soon on BRICS Global Television.
I went into a tackle, and he was this very big guy. He was a world wrestling champion, and I went in thinking that I'd be able to use my force to knock him over, and his shoulder connected my head, and that's when I broke my neck. So I lay on the field. We lay for about an hour. The ambulance couldn't get onto the field because it was a semi-professional game.
China has set up a 300 billion yuan, that's roughly $42 billion, lending facility for affordable housing. The country's recent stimulus efforts aim to address its property market's inventory surplus. The central bank has established the lending facility to aid government-backed housing projects. This initiative encourages 21 banks to provide loans to local state-owned enterprises for buying unsold commercial properties. Ultimately, these unsold properties will be repurposed as affordable housing for either sale or rental purposes. Last week, Shanghai, Shenzhen and Guangzhou, three major cities in China, relaxed regulations regarding housing down payments and mortgages due to ongoing challenges in the housing sector. Shanghai and Shenzhen specifically lowered down payment ratios by 10 percentage points, setting them at a minimum of 20% for first-time buyers and 30% for second home purchases. Brazil's economy has shown a modest growth of 0.8% in the first quarter of this year, rebounding from 2 consecutive quarters of nearly stagnant growth, fueled mainly by increased housing spending. President Lula da Silva's emphasis on achieving robust growth appears to be bearing fruit, with household consumption rising by 1.5%, driven by a decline in unemployment. Agriculture also played a significant role, expanding by 11.3%, although it fell short of previous year's performance, declining by 3% compared to the same period in 2023. Notably, agricultural products like soybeans, corn, tobacco and cassava expressed a drop in production estimates. The service sector seen a growth of 1.4%, while the industrial sector contracted by 0.1%. Despite this growth, the Brazilian Institute of Geography and Statistics revised the GDP growth for the fourth quarter of 2023 downwards to a contraction of 0.1%, indicating ongoing economic challenges. Coming up, BRICS Plus Sport with Yolanda Pondo. The Kruger National Park, an area of beauty, the custodian of most of Africa's rhino population, a park of breathtaking nature, but also an area of horror.
Hello, I'm Yolanda Pondo with your BRICS Plus sports updates. Here's a roundup of news from the French Open. In the aftermath of Novak Djokovic's withdrawal following a knee injury, Aryna Sabalenka seeks her 7th consecutive Grand Slam semi-final against Russian teen Mira Andreeva at the French Open. Meanwhile, Elena Rybakina faces Jasmine Paolini and Alexander Zverev clashes with Alex de Minaur in the remaining quarterfinals. Sabalenka, aiming for her second major title, has cruised through without dropping a set. Andreeva, the youngest quarterfinalist since 2005, at just 17 years old, eyes an upset. In the men's draw, Djokovic's exit reshapes the field. Yannick Sinner, set to become world number 1, takes on Carlos Alcaraz, while Zverev contends with de Minaur for a semi-final battle against Casper Ruud. Zverev, aiming for a 4th Roland Garros semi-final, faces personal challenges amid an ongoing trial. De Minaur, reveling in his best slam performance, eyes a breakthrough. A first-time French Open men's champion will emerge. That's it for today. See you again tomorrow with more BRICS Plus sports stories.
And finally, the China National Space Administration revealed 4 images of the moon's far side taken by the Chang'e 6 probe. These include 3 snapshots from its landing and 1 panoramic view of the landing site. Launched on May the 3rd, the Chang'e 6 probe, equipped with an orbiter, lander, ascender and returner, landed on the South Pole Aitken Basin on June the 2nd. During landing, it collected lunar samples and conducted investigations using its payloads. The captured images were promptly transmitted to the National Astronomical Observatories of the Chinese Academy of Sciences for analysis. Researchers say the flatness of the landing area and the presence of mountains in the distance. Comparing images from Chang'e 6 and Chang'e 5, there are fewer rocks in the former, indicating a smoother landing area. The payloads, including a lunar soil structure detector, successfully carried out scientific exploration tasks as planned. Well, that's your BRICS Plus News Roundup for today. We'll have more for you tomorrow. And in the meantime, check out our website and social media for updates.